Okay guys, so for those of you who haven't seen it before, you can see that I use a hook to pick logs up, okay, off of my pile there or anywhere else I am. I find these hooks, the way I use them, to be really handy, especially in the woods. I can pull trees pretty quick with them, grab a hold of a stump end and pull a tree out of the woods. Now the backhoe has a lot to do with that because it's pretty strong backhoe. But I'm just going to show you how I put the log onto the bunk. Now just keep in mind, I'm by myself. I don't want two chains on there because I don't need the log to be laying in a certain way. But the small end is facing us at the moment, and you do know that I like putting the small end towards the saw head. So that's how I'm going to be putting this on here. So I'll just show you how I do it with the backhoe. It's running now. You can see how quick that is to put it on there. Now sometimes, you know, no matter what you try to do, sometimes you've got some headaches. Sometimes the log is not hooked in the right place or whatever, and then you might have some trouble with it. But I've been doing pretty good here. I haven't had any real problems. For those of you who buy the same things that I buy, I had broken this hook the other day and I had to weld another piece on here. So I'm seeing there's a crack on the other side. I'm going to have to weld that a new piece on this side as well. But anyway, I just wanted you to see how I put the log onto the bed. What I do is I drag it, and you saw that in the video. I drag it until the log is between the two bunk frame, and then I just bring it over here and it pretty much, you know, stays where I put it. And that's pretty much how simple it is. Now sometimes it's a little harder. If the logs are long, I gotta come in from this side. I can't come in from that end. But it's not that hard to do if you hook them more towards the middle. You can bring them in, and if I hold them up in the air, I can park the backhoe, you know, just have the chain over the middle of the bunk somewhere. You can bring the log down to level, set the one end on the bunk rail somewhere, and then I just lower the bucket. But it's not that bad. in case you're wondering, all the lumber that I had here for the guy with the shed, he took all that. I have two 2x6s here that I told him I would cut into the rafters, the shapes of the rafters that he's going to need, because I done that thousands of times. So I'm going to cut these into rafters for him, and then he can use them as a pattern. But everything else that I had there is gone. So what I'm after right now is I need red oak, because I have an order coming up for next spring, and I need to get the red oak dried. So what I'm trying to do is get red oak cut and get it into the kiln so I can have it dried for spring. So anyway, this is my next little thing here. I'll get back to you in a minute once I get it set up. Okay guys, so this end is 12 inches here. So I should be able to get an 8-inch cant out of here. Because with a 12-inch log you get an 8.5-inch cant. Now the problem here is you can see this tree, or this log, has a little bit of a bend in it here. It's not real bad, but it does have a little bit of a bend. We'll try and get a straight cut through here and see what happens. This end is 13 inches, so it's fairly the same size. It's just that this one is 12 inches this way. So they're pretty much the same size. The problem with this is, like I say, it's a little raised up in the center right here at this bunk rail. But I'm going to leave it the way it is there, and I'm going to cut it, and we'll see what happens here with this thing. What I'm in need of is any 1x4, 1x6, 1x8. That's what I'm after. So let me get the saw started up and warmed up, and we'll start cutting that. Okay guys, so I'm going to take that blade off of there. I was using this blade the other day, and it's not cutting oak the way I want it to. The blade I have here hasn't been sharpened. It's a brand new blade. Now there's a little bit of dirt and stuff on it, but that's because it was sitting in the greenhouse. But anyway, I want to put another blade on here because I don't want to have trouble cutting the red oak. And that's what I'm going to be cutting most of here. And then I'll have to sharpen this one. So I'm going to hang this up in here. I'm a little bit behind on sharpening blades. I got a bunch of them to sharpen. Probably have about 6 blades in there that ought to be sharpened. The one thing that I notice a lot of guys make mistakes, when you put the saw blade on, make sure that the teeth are aiming that way on the bottom, because that's the way the saw cuts. If you put the blade on backwards, all it's going to do is give you a lot of grief. Now it's pretty easy to change the blade on these, and I was watching a video the other day where a guy was talking about a different kind of sawmill, a Harbor Freight sawmill, and there was a lot more to getting it set up. I can honestly tell you that I've never done anything to this sawmill in 4 years that has to do with straightening the blade, moving the blade or anything at all. All I do is sharpen blades. The sawmill keeps its holdings, its settings, and it runs good. But I am going to run it a little bit here just to make sure it's following the tracks. Now what I do also is I don't run any water in it. I don't put any oily stuff on it. I stopped using that. All I do is put 2 squirts of oil maybe every couple hours as I'm using it, just to oil the bearings over here. That's all I care about. The rest of this thing has been staying together good. Alright, I'm going to show you a couple of things here as I'm going. Okay, I had said that this is a 12-inch diameter log. So the cant out of that's 8.5 inches. Now that's if the log is nice and straight. This log is not perfectly straight. It's got a little kink in it there. So if I can get, 8 inches, 7.5 inches, I'll be happy with that. Or even 6 inches. I'm just trying to cut boards. That's all I'm after. So what I normally do then, for those of you who are sort of just watching for the first time, is I measure across the log. I measure across the log where I want to start. So 8 inches, you can see how high 8 inches is there. It's about right here, an inch below the bottom of where I'm working. So I just measure across where 8 inches is, and that's where I start to cut. So with this thing, 8 inches is about right there. And what I do is I measure from one side to the other, and I'm a little bit, I'm close to 8. So that's where I'm going to start to cut. Now, when you do it like this, you end up getting to your cant a lot quicker. Now, if you want to try and save every inch of board you can, that's up to you. I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is getting the log cut to as many flat boards as I can. That's what I'm after. Now, even though there's a knot or two in some of these boards, it doesn't make them that you can't use them, because you can use them. All you got to do is figure out what you're going to use them for. There's a knot here, some small ones there that don't really matter. Now the problem here is we've got sapwood on this. Now even though there's sapwood on here, I'm still not caring about that. If I get a little sapwood on the wood, I can always trim that off if you're using it for flooring or something that you need the hard wood. But sometimes this sapwood looks good on there, and you can use it for the furniture if you want furniture wood. Now, I'm not saying it's the best, I'm saying it can be used. So, let me just keep cutting this thing and we'll see what we got here. Sometimes, depending on the log, if the log is nice and straight, I'll just turn it this much and then cut it. But because this log has a little bit of a kink in it, I want to turn it another turn yet, another click, just to get it so that it's flat with what I got cut there. This second cut, I could do the same thing I did with the front, the first cut, and measure across 8 inches, but I like trying to get as much wood as I can, so I can just do it with the gauge. I can just go to 8 inches on the gauge. Of course, if I go right at 8 inches, I lose a little bit of the boards because of cutting the pieces. You know, you lose about 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to go a hair lower than where I'm at. I'm at 9 inches there, and then we'll make a nice straight cut. Watched me cut before, you know I usually throw the flinches onto the backhoe, but the problem is I need to use the backhoe tomorrow to move something for somebody, and if I put the flitches on there, I'm not going to have enough to want to haul them to the neighbor. So I'm not going to worry about that today. This side looking pretty good so far here. Know where you're at and where you're going to hit and everything. You can see that this end here is up off the bunk a little bit. The rest of it's not looking too bad. What I could do is raise it up a little bit on that end to get this a little flatter. I think I'm going to do that. If I raise that up like 1 inch down there, this will be a little bit better for me to cut. that cant there is 8.5 inches. It's close to where it should have been. 8.5 is what it should have been. Even though I had a little bend in it, I'm ending up with you know, a little bit of wane there, or not wane, well yeah, some wane, but I'm ending up with some sapwood on there, which I'm not exactly crazy about, but that doesn't mean it can't be used. So I'm just going to cut from what I have there. I'll cut the boards down. The saw blade's cutting beautiful. It's nice and straight. Now I use a 6-foot straight edge to be able to check the cut, and I just know it's cutting straight. I'm not even going to check it, but I'll cut 1-inch boards out of that now. This wood's pretty nice looking. There's still a knot on the right side halfway down, but it's still pretty nice. Cutting this oak the way it is and drying it should give me some nice boards. Now sometimes when you have a knot on one side, like what I have here, it's not real big, but sometimes the knot won't shrink and the rest of the board will, and that'll cause it to bend, okay? But as long as you stack everything good, it shouldn't bend upward or downward. It should pretty much stay where it's at. Maybe you'll get a little bump in that and it'll stay straight. So you want to do everything as neatly as you can to keep the wood straight. to show you this knot that's in here. You can see there's a knot right in front of my finger there. Okay, sometimes these knots can make a board bow, bend, twist, whatever. There's also a knot, let me see here, up at this end, a slight one. But the wood itself is nice, and if anything happens here, I can get a 1x4 out of that, which will be worth whatever the going market price is for it once it's dried. So I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing so far here. I'm getting a couple of small knots here, but they're not really bad looking, and they're on the edges, so I can actually cut them off once it's dry. Now, because of what I'm doing here, just to let you know, I'm stacking this wood. I'm putting the stickers one on top of the other to keep them nice and straight. I got to get above that opening that's there. Once I'm above that opening, the air will come across the front and move through the wood to dry it good. Okay, so as I come up there, I got to move in because of the taper of the roof. So that's what I'm doing at the moment with that. It's 110 degrees in there at the moment. 30% humidity. It's relative humidity. It's perfect for drying. Couldn't ask for a better thing than that in the kiln. where I'm at right there now, that's the center of the tree, okay? So the center of hardwood, especially red oak, is that it started a bunch of small branches, and you can see, I'll show them to you here. You can see the smaller knots that are on there, but they're almost invisible because they're so small, and you'll still be able to be using this wood. So you want to kind of be careful with what you're cutting, how you cut it. If I wanted to, I could turn that, or if you wanted to, you could turn it a different way to get something else out of it. For instance, right there, I could probably get 1x4, more like 1x3 at the moment. I could get 1x3 out of there if I wanted to. But for right now, I'm going to just keep cutting down there. Okay, so that one there's exactly 2 inches. Now if I cut 1 inch from the top down, I may not get exactly a nice board because there's a little bit of wing on the bottom of it. So I'm going to flip that over and then cut it from the bottom up 1 inch, and that should give me what I'm looking for. Because if I try to cut that 1 inch, I'm going to end up making the board too small anyway to put on my stacking pile at the moment. Alright, so this bottom board is right at 1 inch. But this board here is more like 3/4, and I really don't want to use that for anything. So this goes on the scrap pile. Can make good firewood for somebody. We still ended up with a little bit of wane on here, about maybe 10 inches of wane, but the board's nice looking. They're heavy because there's a lot of moisture and we had a lot of rain this year, but the board looks pretty decent. A little bit of white on this side. I can still get a 1x6 out of here when the time comes, so I'm not going to worry about it. It looks pretty good. Okay guys, so I got 3 stacks of wood out of that, and if you figure the way I'm figuring, you're basically 3 times 48, so let's just say 50 to make it easy. 150 board feet times $8 a board foot, you're looking at quite a bit of money there, more than $800, with just a little bit of cutting that I did this morning here with you. Okay, that's what those boards, 3 layers of boards would come to. You know what I'm saying? Now, naturally, some of them prices are for absolutely clear, but sometimes you can't find absolutely clear. So anyway, it's well worth cutting. You know, $800, whether they sell or don't sell, it's still $800 in my pocket. And that's how I look at this. Alright, so that's it for now as far as the videos go. I'm going to clean up that sawdust and then I'll be in good shape for the next one. Have a good one, guys. Guys, the last thing, I know that a lot of what I say and do here is repetitious, but let's face it, cutting logs is like driving your car. When I used to drive my Corvette, I used to love getting in it and I liked driving the car, but every day wasn't exciting. Some days were just, you know, traffic, boring traffic or whatever. But it depends on how you look at things. For me, cutting wood adds to my assets. It's a value for me, it's cheap, and I get a good deal out of it, and I can help other people. A lot of times I'll give away wood for nothing. Depends on who it is and how badly they need it. People that can afford to pay for it should pay for it, because I mean it does take me time to do, and I spend money on taking care of the mill. But anyway, I just wanted to say that because of the repetition, don't let that, you know, keep you from watching some of the videos or all the videos, because you never know when something else is going to happen. And then I usually try to handle it on the camera so that if you do have a problem, you can fix your problem right away. So anyway, I'm happy with what I got there. Like I say, the difference between red oak and cutting pine, even though I love cutting pine because of the 2x4s, it don't compare in value as to cutting red oak. Red oak is a big money market item around here, and you can get a lot of money for it. So, you know, I cut a lot of it. My whole greenhouse is filled with what I want in red oak. I have a bunch of different varieties of wood in there. The other day a friend of mine came over and he wanted something to put around the edge of a cabinet and he didn't want to use pine, so he chose white oak. I had some white oak there that's been drying for 3 years, so it was really nice to be able to use that. So we planed it, and then he took it. You know, you never know when somebody's going to need different types of oddball things, and I like supplying that. I don't want to be in this like some guys are, cutting every single day and having to cut to make some money. I've already made my money in the years gone by, but I still enjoy doing this, and I don't like to work for free if I can help it. But it all, like I say, it depends on the person, you know, who it is. If they need something, I try to help them. Alright guys, so that's it. Have a good one.